You know, maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't doomed after all. There were actually some really big events that happened over the course of last weekend, and they will probably change the perception that you have on the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. Today, I'm going to be talking about techs, deck list, and some really interesting things that you need to know about to be able to up your Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with ya, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. So over last weekend, there were quite the few events that happened that had some completely different outcomes. And I'm not just talking about just regionals, even though there were some pretty big regionals over the weekend. I'm talking about a collective total of over 4,000 Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists, and Snake Eyes not being the most dominant entity in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. For the past couple of weeks, content creators have been saying, "It's doom and gloom! It's over! Snake Eyes tier 0! And I'm not gonna lie, I even succumbed to that doom and gloom over the last week, especially after we've seen a couple of high-profile events. But there's always two sides to a story. There's always the opposite side of the coin, and it seems like over this last weekend, we've seen a lot of the opposite side of the coin. We've seen a lot of things that have changed the story and the narrative. Today, me and Chad, we're going to be talking about some really important cards that we've noticed to help turn the tides of the format, and then we're also going to be talking about some of the biggest events that happened and big-time decks that weren't Snake Eyes that completely dominated. Link Karibo had to die so the meta can thrive. Oh no, Patterson. I'll be the first to admit, chat, when the ban list came out, I was a little disappointed that there weren't more Snake Eyes hits, but I did think that it was going to be closer to the format that we're seeing at this second, where Snake Eyes is still a really good contender, but other Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategies are doing incredibly well. Ultimately though, I want to hear what are you guys' thoughts on what's happening in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, and how do you feel about it? At least it wasn't Snake Eyes mirror in the finals. That was the saving grace. Plants are officially getting hit hard, my brother. Well, of course, we'll talk about the deck list in a little bit, but I noticed that there were some really cool cards that people were using to be able to combat Snake Eyes and other strategies. If you guys know of some, go ahead and let us know and we'll talk about them. One card that I noticed had a huge impact in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game was Book of Eclipse. Now, Book of Eclipse has been used in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! On again and off again for quite some time. It was previously used to stop Kashtira players from being able to Exceed Summon, and that rule can still apply, just for a different mechanic. As you should already know, link monsters need to be face up on the field to be linked off, and so Book of Eclipse being able to use its effects to be able to flip monsters face down is really good at that. But it also has a second ability to be able to stop players from using cards like Snake Eyes Ash and Snake Eyes Oak to send themselves and another card off the field to the graveyard. Because if everything is face down, then they won't be able to not only use those cards' effects, they can't also send those face down cards to the graveyard. Book of Eclipse can also be used offensively on your turn if your opponent has monsters like Flameurge on their side of the field and they want to link it off with the effect of IP Masquerena. Book of Eclipse can be used preemptively to flip the Flameurge face down before they summon IP Masquerena to their side of the field and link summons, putting them in a really tough spot. But your opponents can draw sometimes. Another really good thing about Book of Eclipse is that it's good against synchro summoning. And as you guys know, Tenpai Dragon is one of the best decks in the format. When you activate Book of Eclipse after your opponent activates a card like Pot of Prosperity, they get their monsters flipped face down, but they won't get the draw. And sometimes you do put your opponent in a situation where they will be able to flip their cards face up and draw, which isn't the end of the world. If you're giving your opponent cards in their hand to essentially end their turn, or if you're using it to flip their cards face down before they can link summon and then get rid of them, there's almost no drawback for Book of Eclipse. Dark Ruler No More is being used now? Bro! Dark Ruler No More is actually a crazy good card right now. I've seen Dark Ruler No More get used a lot now. It's because it does equalize a board. And while you won't be able to win on that turn, which sometimes can be really important, if you can set up your own board, then a lot of times you can shut down your opponent's next play. Snake Eyes is a strategy that tends to always have another play going forward. But a lot of times that one play is typically fragile. If you're able to stop that follow-up play, the deck is dead in the water. Dark Ruler No More is stronger than Droplets in some situations. It is. The trade-off of Dark Ruler No More and Forbidden Droplets really needs to be studied, because while Droplets does allow you to inflict damage, you have to get rid of cards on your hand in field to be able to negate multiple cards. Dark Ruler No More trades off your opponent's entire cards and prevents them from negating it with monster effects, but you can't win the game, which again almost doesn't matter if you are making a board that they can't break. Is some of the tier cards a good tech for Lightsworn? I don't think they're bad techs, but I think a better tech for most Yu-Gi-Oh decks right now, including Lightsworn, is the Black Goat Laughs. Cool, that card is crazy. The Black Goat Laughs allow you to declare a monster name, and this turn, neither players can summon that monster with the original name except for the graveyard. Then it allows you to banish it from the graveyard, and then that turn, neither player can activate the effects of monsters on the field of that original name. The card is bonkers. The Black Goat Laughs is simply one of those cards that has matured in age really well. Being able to banish itself to prevent a monster on the field from being activated is crazy. And the best thing about it is that you use it when your opponent has an ignition monster effect that you really know that they want to get off. Like, for example, there are lines where your opponent summons a Promethean princess and needs an additional monster on the field to go into their next play. Your Black Goat Laughs it. If you're going against Tenpai Dragon, you can declare host of monsters to prevent them from being able to summon or use those important effects. It's irony that Black Goat's Laughs is being used more than transaction rollback, or you can transaction rollback another Black Goat Laughs. I think when it first came out, everyone laughed and called it trash. Fast forward, the Black Goat Laughs certainly gets the last laugh. There's also one more card that I think people are using and is heavily underrated. Droll and Lockbird. Droll is actually crazy good right now. A lot of the Snake Eyes variants have moved away from Pure and they start playing things like Kashtira or maybe another particular build to make them a little bit more fluid. The problem with that though is that now the deck completely loses the Droll and Lockbird again. As you guys should already know, Droll and Lockbird is at its best, its peak, when no one sees it coming, and no one saw it coming. Droll comes in clutch, especially with another Sword of Interruption. Oh my god. Droll is normally like a game changer. You get Droll plus another hand trap or interruption, you're right. Droll can be a turn ender. It used to be on side decks, and people are starting to bring it back in their sideboard and their main board respectively. It feels like we're in a 50 hand trap to board breaker format. Am I wrong? I think that the old belief that you had to play 15 hand traps in your deck, players are starting to push back on that a little bit and are starting to get good results. Some of the deck lists that we're going to talk about, these particular strategies didn't go all in on hand traps, which is a good thing. In actuality, the decks went a completely different route, and I think it was pretty good. I think it's best to even show you guys what I'm talking about with a couple of great deck lists, because Yu-Gi-Oh isn't just Snake Eyes, or at least not for the weekend, and hopefully not for the future. Yeah, people are waking up to heavier gas decks to try to play through Snake Eyes non-engine than hand trap Wortham. To be fair, I think that that's a good idea. It's mainly because Snake Eyes is a one-card combo deck, meaning that it can play a ton of hand traps. Most Yu-Gi-Oh strategies can't do that. So essentially, when they're playing with 4 hand traps, you're playing with 2 to 3, which means that you're going to lose the hand trap war almost every single time. A board breaker approach would probably be a little bit better for most Yu-Gi-Oh strategies. Not with Tenpai right around the corner, wanting to OTK you more than Drake wants to hit a mine. Yo! He's not getting out of this. Yu-Gi-Oh players are hitting Drake, bro. Holy crap. Let's talk about some decks. There have been a total of 32 different archetypes to reach top 64 or better. This meta is playable. The Year of the Fire is simmering down. Bro, we gotta talk about that. So there were a couple of regionals that happened last weekend and a couple of nationals. I'm only gonna go over some of them, mainly because I'm not gonna go over every single regional event because that would take this video way too long. But I'm gonna go over some of the more important ones and the bigger ones. Let's start off with an average run-of-the-mill American regional. The Philadelphia regional had 1,000 players. You guys won't believe who got first. Branded, yes, Branded got first. We could say that Pac getting first with Branded is like, it's Pac. He's gonna get first with whatever he wanted to. But when you actually look at the entirety of that regionals, Branded got first, Runic Stun got second, Snake Eyes got third, Voiceless Voice got fourth, and guess what got in top 8? My man Came in Yu-Gi-Oh got 6th place with his Synchron deck, and while it does run the Diabell Star cards and a little bit of Snake Eyes as in original Sinful Spoils, it is strictly just a Synchro deck. I think that this is really huge when we live inside of a tier 0 Yu-Gi-Oh format and players can still win with decks that aren't necessarily even thought of to be good whatsoever. I know I don't think Synchron's as one of the better decks, but if you go into an event and you know exactly what you're playing, you can thrive even at 1,000-man regionals with some of the best players in the world being able to compete inside it. It will take a good pilot to play Synchron for sure. You're not wrong. And I don't think that this will be something that we'll see over and over again, but it's really cool to see a deck like Synchron Topic. A lot of people may knock the Luthania Championship, and it's strictly because it didn't have a lot of players. If I'm looking at this correctly, it had 57. But chat, a natty is still a natty. It don't matter where you get it. And let's be real, you don't got a natty, so sit down and be humble. Every single one of these people that is at the national championship just so happened to have won at least or topped a regionals. So it's not like you got 57 bums in the building. All of these guys are well-respected players. Just the top 8 is Plant Link, Sprite, Dark World, Tenpai Dragon, Snake Eyes, Orcus, Yubel, and Voiceless Voice. I genuinely think that Yu-Gi-Oh! It would be cool if we got to see Yu-Gi-Oh! More like this. And to be honest, I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is closer to this than what it is than we've been seeing. We just have a lot of players that really want to win, so they'll pick the deck that they think is best available. Let's be real, guys. It's way easier to play a Snake Eyes deck or a Tenpai Dragon deck than it is to play a deck like Plant Link. Come on, guys. Let's just be real. It's way easier to play the brainless decks that are stronger. I think Sprite is on the come up, and second place, Serge Afonsky. I really hope I said that person's name right, but I don't think I did. Simplifies and shows how Sprite can be a really good Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, especially a Sprite Live Twin deck when played correctly. We see Droll and Lockbird in the sideboard because it's actually incredible against Snake Eyes decks that like to search a lot, and there isn't a huge emphasis on a ton of hand traps. They're mainly just used for crossout targets. Sprite is one of those weird decks that are really good against hand traps too. You can open 14 hand traps against the deck and it won't matter. And if the deck plays it correctly, summoning Nightmare Griffin into the main monster zone can be a complete blowout against a lot of top Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategies. I got a couple of deck lists that I got to show you guys, so let's go ahead and move to Germany, where Plant Link got first place at a 2,100 man event. So even on the small scale, we see some strategies that are thriving, and even on the biggest scale of what happened this weekend, we can see that Snake Eyes isn't the dominant deck. Yes, so far from what we see, it got second and third place or second and fourth place, but Julius winning with Plant Link is a testament to how some of these other strategies can be really good. This particular build ran Dark Ruler No More to be able to stop your opponent's board. We talked about that. Some other interesting cards like Retaliating Sea and Contact Sea, and overall, the Plant Link deck didn't run a ton of hand traps. Actually, it didn't run any hand traps other than, I don't think you consider Imperm a hand trap, do you guys? So like, it's a board breaker. It is a hand trap, but it looks like they were using it more as a board breaker. I think that this particular deck is incredibly versatile, and there's so many different ways to play Plant Link. Like if you look at UK Nationals, Plant Link got second place, and this particular build doesn't run hand traps either. I mean, it does, but it's really for cross-out designator targets. The deck is really good at being able to break boards and make really cool boards. I think that players should really look into getting their Ragnaraka card before it's too late, because Plant Link is a genuine thing. 2 national tops, 1 win, 1 second place, makes the deck a genuine contender. It got second, 16th, exact same list? There's no way. Oh my god, it got 16th too, and it's the exact same list. Bro, if you guys think that Plant Link is not it, you're goofy, man. The deck is so complex to learn. I agree. I think one of the biggest problems is the complexity of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck. It's a lot simpler to play Snake Eyes, but if you guys are tired of a Snake Eyes format, then go ahead and learn those more complicated decks, get really good at them, and now your opponent has to realize what you're doing. That can snatch easy wins. As a Plant player, it does take time, but once you get it, it's wild. Plant is the new Dragon Link, guys. I am wholeheartedly convinced at this point in time. I really wanted to show you guys is Louis Tulodetzky's Labyrinth deck because it was a lot different. It ran a really interesting trap card. It ran a card called Simultaneous Equation Cannon, and basically it says banish 1 fusion and 2 Exceed monsters with the same rank from your extra deck, whose combined level and ranks equals the total number of cards in both players' hands and field. Then apply this effect. Return 2 of your banished monsters to the extra deck, 1 Exceed, 1 Fusion, whose combined level and rank equals to the level of rank of 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Then banish all cards they control. What? Did you guys even understand what happened there? So if there's like 8 cards on the field in hand, you banish a level 2, a level 4, and a level 2, and a rank 2, and then if there's a level 4 monster on the field, you banish everything they have. It's like banish 3, add numbers, divide by 0, call your mom, and wipe your opponent's board. I think that the most important thing that you guys can take from this video is that just because everybody is playing Snake Eyes doesn't mean that it's the only way to win. This weekend showed us there was a crazy amount of innovation, and if you take your time to learn the deck that you really want to play, you can have success with it. I'm not saying that there isn't still problems in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm not saying that things should not be hit. I'm saying that if you really do put your mind into it, you can make the best out of a terrible situation. But let me know what you guys think about it down below in the comment section. I can't wait to see what you have to say.